Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Siam Center Law Group podcast. I'm Barrister Garn, and today I want to talk about a surprisingly common situation that can happen to anyone, especially in this day and age when shopping online, buying at street markets, or purchasing from casual sellers is so normal. The issue is, what happens if you unknowingly buy stolen property? Let's say you bought something online or from a random vendor at a local fair or street stall. A few days later, the police come to your door and tell you, "This item you bought was actually stolen. We're here to seize it and return it to the rightful owner." What do? Are you in trouble? Do you have to give it back? Could you even be criminally charged? Well, it depends. The key question is, did you buy the item in good faith? And more importantly, do your actions meet the legal conditions that allow for protection under Thai law? Here's the good news. The law does provide protection for people who purchase things honestly and without bad intentions. That means if you had no reason to suspect the item was stolen, for example, the seller seemed normal, the price was reasonable, and the sale happened during the day in a public place or through a reputable platform, then you may be protected. Also, if you purchased it from a place where people typically buy that type of item, like a community market, a department store, a trusted online store, or a known electronics center like Fortune Town or JIB, that works in your favor. And lastly, if you bought the item from someone who regularly sells that kind of product, say buying a watch from a watch shop, then you're even more protected. But if you buy a diamond necklace from a secondhand clothing store, that's a red flag. If your purchase checks all three boxes, no bad faith, bought in a normal place and from a legitimate seller, then the original owner cannot immediately reclaim the item from you. If they want it back, they'll have to reimburse you the amount you paid. And most importantly, you are not criminally liable for receiving stolen property. But what if your purchase doesn't meet those conditions? That's where things get risky. For example, maybe you bought something that was way too cheap from someone who had no receipt or in a secluded area at night, and the seller seemed suspicious, avoided eye contact, or gave inconsistent stories. In that case, even if you didn't know it was stolen, the law might say you had reason to suspect it. That's called gross negligence, and it could mean you don't get legal protection. Sometimes courts may interpret the situation differently depending on the circumstances and how convincing your explanation is. There's no fixed formula. Every case depends on context. To make this more real, here's a question to think about. Suppose you buy a smartphone at a very low price from a stranger in a dark parking lot. No receipt, no transaction history, and no clear background info on the seller. What does this behavior indicate? The answer: it clearly falls under reasonable suspicion of stolen goods, because the entire situation raises red flags. The price, the setting, the lack of documentation, all point to the risk of dealing with stolen property. So to wrap things up, when something seems too cheap or the seller looks too shady, it might not be good luck. It might be a legal trap. Always check the origin of what you're buying. Ask for documentation, evaluate the situation, and try to stick to trusted platforms or sellers with a verifiable track record. Because if you're not careful, you could end up losing your money, the item, and even facing legal charges. In those situations, the police can seize the item, you may have to return it, and if it's no longer in your possession, say you used it or sold it, you might have to pay the owner back, and in serious cases, you could be charged with receiving stolen property, which is a criminal offense. Now let's look at a gray area. What if you meant well and didn't know the item was stolen, but still didn't meet all three conditions? For example, maybe you bought something expensive from a friend who doesn't normally sell that type of product. Even if you had good intentions, you're not protected in terms of legal ownership. That means you might still have to return the item or repay the owner. The upside: you're not criminally liable since there was no criminal intent, but you still lose the item or your money. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get first-hand news.